Juicerina came out of a collaboration between me and Michael Parker. Shortly after meeting Michael, he discovered that I liked making ocarinas as kind of a hobby of mine. And that was something that he learned and then kind of held on to for several years, until he was working on his juicers, which it was a project called Juicework, where he created these ceramic juicers for juicing citrus fruits. And he had handed me one of his juicers and said, "Can you make this into an instrument?" And I told him, "Yeah, I can make that into an ocarina." And that's how the Juicerina was born. Since then, the collaboration has kind of expanded. We initially only made 4 and did a short performance with 4 of these hold instruments that are kind of function as an ocarina normally functions. And then later on, we decided we wanted to do a larger, expanded collaboration, where we were going to make more than 30 instruments. And this time, we made a little bit of a change for how the instruments work. Instead of choosing one hole or multiple holes, we chose to do one slot-like hole on some of them, and others have a large circular hole. This completely changed the way the instruments worked, and it completely created the new ensemble that we're using for the Juicerina performance. We decided to change the range. Rather than just making a Juicerina that's Juicerina sized, we started making them larger, and so this is like a large juicer, and then even larger, which are now surpassing the size the juicers were normally being made. And then they got larger yet again, creating these very large, more amorphous shapes. And then at the very end, we created 6 extremely large ones. These allowed the musical instrument range to be expanded tremendously. The Juicerina is an extremely easy instrument to play. There are many ways to hold them and kind of arrange the way that you want to perform on them. So some instruments you can hold from below and above, depending on how you want them to sound, and also what makes you comfortable when you're playing them. You shouldn't be afraid to just blow into the instrument and make noise. They're very intuitive for how much air it requires to make a sound, and how to make a quiet and a loud sound on the instrument. Playing them is as simple as just blowing air through the small hole that you'll see on one side of the instrument, and then figuring out how much of the hole that you want to cover or uncover. And that's the most basic system for playing these instruments. The larger instruments will require a lot more air than the smaller instruments. So an instrument such as this will require more than twice the air of one of the very small instruments like these. So it's as easy as just finding the hole that you blow your air through, and then covering and uncovering the hole. On the small instruments, you may have to resist the air a little bit, so you may have to let the air out very, very slowly compared to what you're used to when you breathe. But overall, they're very intuitive to learn how to play, and very easy to play. I'm going to go over some various techniques that you can also do above just blowing sound into the instruments. So there are tonguing techniques, such as tonguing on the front of your tongue like a T, ta, 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 and also playing using tonguing on the back of the throat, so there's ah, 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 ah. Both tonguing systems work on these instruments, and you can choose to use whichever you prefer. So for that, I'm going ta, ta, ta. And then I can also go. So it's easy to just move your finger in between tonguing the notes, and you can make it sound as though you're jumping in pitch rather than sliding. Both tonguing techniques work. Some tonguing techniques work better on some instruments than others, such as a T tonguing on the large and the back of the throat tonguing on the small. Beyond just tonguing the sounds, you could also produce multi-harmonic pitches by singing into the instrument, or for the smaller instruments, humming into them. This technique is also quite easy, but takes a small amount of practice to learn how to blow air out of your mouth and hum. For larger instruments, you have to hum rather loudly to match the pitch of the instrument. You'll note that the instruments are producing 2 pitches, both the pitch that you're producing from your throat and the pitch of the instruments that it's playing itself. You can mix and match them, changing which pitch you hum and which pitch that you allow from the hole that you're opening and closing. That technique takes a small amount of practice, but is overall very easy and can be learned in under 5 minutes. You can also try flutter tonguing, which is when you rapidly allow your tongue to flutter in the front as though you're doing a T, such as that. This technique on the instrument makes a very rapid, kind of staccato note. You may note that some instruments do the flutter tonguing much better than others, depending on how much pressure that the instrument allows it to play under. The unusual airy noises that made by some of the instruments may be very desirable, as the pitch of the fluttering can overpower the instrument itself. This effect is very interesting because you shift in between the pitch of the instrument itself and more percussive sounds that the body of the instrument is producing. There's another technique on the instrument that you can do called overblowing, where you take the instrument and you blow far more air than the instrument normally allows to be played in the usual fashion. So I would be blowing air to do. If I blow more air, the note will cut out and then a much higher shrill pitch will play instead. That shrill pitch is an overblown pitch, and most of them don't vary very much, but they have a very unique tonal quality. On some of the instruments, you can change the way that you decide to hold them. So for instance, on this instrument, I can cover it with one finger, or I can choose to cover it with two. And I can also choose the way that I hold it, so let's say for instance to hold it with my thumb like this. Or I can try and play it vertically like this.